With home ownership being the ultimate goal for many people in Canada, and more specifically in Toronto, first-time buyers may spend years ahead of time looking at different homes, browsing online, getting a sense of what they want that first home to look like. And that's especially true in the online age with access to information, listings online, sold data is more than plentiful. It's very easy to throw up an app, a House Sigma, a Zolo, and check out listings online. And with so much of that search being online and done years in advance, a lot of these first-time buyers or homeowners in general have definitely an idea of what they want in their very first home or their dream home in general. They develop those wants and those needs ahead of time, so when they are buying that first home, they know what they're looking for. Now in this week's video, we're going through an article from Zolo Canada talking about what features do most home buyers want in their home in 2023. I got the awesome inspiration from Dan and Nick from the Real Estate Investor Podcast, a Canadian Real Estate Investor Podcast. So check them out, talking exactly about this article. I thought I'd go through it and give my own thoughts. And look, I have a very first-time buyer perspective on a lot of things when it comes to Toronto real estate. So I thought I'd add some perspective on it. And get some insight on what people actually are looking for in their very first homes in Canada. And before I jump into the article, my name is Gabriela Batista from Homes into Reality. Like I mentioned before, I do weekly content about being a first-time buyer in the Toronto real estate market. So if you want insights or if you are a first-time buyer looking to get more information on becoming a future homeowner, please reach out. My information is below, my phone number, my email, and a link to book a call with me. I'm more than happy to touch base and talk about your first-time buying goals in Toronto. Jumping into the article, again, the title is What Features Do Most Home Buyers Want in 2023? You can find this on Zolo.ca in the blog section, and we can take a look. And the interesting first point that they mentioned was that 47% of Canadians spend between 1 to 2 years browsing real estate listings before they even start house hunting. And I think just that one point talks about a couple of things. It talks about how long of a line or a timeline we're looking at when it comes to buying your first home. It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of time to know what you want, where you want to live, how things change. And in the end, because homeownership itself as a first-time buyer can be very difficult, it's very easy to be looking online ahead of time and getting a sense and dreaming maybe a little bit bigger and getting financially ready to buy that first home. So it makes a lot of sense. It also shows how much of our listing information is online. A lot of my clientele nowadays are already searching on different apps before we start the home buying journey. So it shows a lot of our technology is pushed online. We're making that home journey search a lot easier. The first huge point that's talked about in this article is that despite rising prices, home buyers stay committed to the single-family suburban dream home. And when they go into about this, they talk about how although there's more push for density with condos being built more and more downtown, or they're looking more at townhouses, most people still want that detached, maybe a semi-detached home. They want their own place for themselves. And it says that 62% of Canadians prefer single-family homes, a significantly higher percentage to those drawn to condos or apartments, which is 20%, and then townhouses being 10%. What's interesting about this topic is it's very counterintuitive on what the cities really push for density. Because density is such an important thing on making housing more affordable, it's interesting. People are more willing to travel in that sense to get that bigger space. And I'm definitely seeing it. And especially if I look at a lot of my first-time buyer webinars. I talk to dozens of people every single month from my first-time buyer webinars. And the majority of people who want to become first-time buyers, they're actually not looking to buy a condo, buy a townhouse. They want to skip that home buying process, and they rather drive until they qualify and buy a single-family house. So either if that's them going to Mississauga, Barrie, Hamilton, or going to Durham, a little bit more east, they want to drive until they can buy that single-family home. And at times people are very demotivated because they realize how expensive it is to buy a single family home, but they're committed to the idea that they want to buy that home and they don't want to buy, let's say, a condo or a townhouse. And the next topic that's bringing up over here is Canadians look to escape the city. As per location, the suburbs reign supreme in our survey, with 71% of buyers looking to escape the city, either to the suburbs, which is 44%, or to a rural community, 27%. Only 29% of people wanted to stay in the living or in the downtown city center. So your downtown core condo areas. Most people either wanted to go to the suburbs or go in the rural areas. And that complements really well the need for people wanting to get those single family detached homes. They're not going to be getting them in the city centers downtown. They're going to either get them in the suburbs or in the rural pockets, with most people kind of looking at those suburban areas, things like Vaughan, Richmond Hill, Aurora, going more to Durham, Whitby. Those pockets, they want to look for that single family home, and they rather have it in a close proximity to Toronto, but they will drive and they rather spend an hour commuting in just to get that single family home. I also wonder with this article and how much effect it has when it comes to the work at home culture. With the pandemic, a lot of people left the downtown city core to be more in open areas, more space. A lot of people actually went to not even suburbs, they went to more rural areas because they could work from home. I'm wondering how much of an effect this kind of has on that. We also, at least on my end, I'm seeing a lot of people kind of going against that curve now that work from home is no longer a full-time option for them. They want to get a little bit closer to the city because still you're looking at almost a third, so 29% of people still want to be in those city centers where there's a lot of things going on. So I don't think there's no demand for downtown living. I do think it's a particular type of person looking to live downtown. I think you're still looking at your young professionals, your people who are more career oriented, people going to school, more students, people who are early on in the homeownership journey and they don't yet have a family ready to settle down. Looking at the numbers overall, I do think that the suburban pockets of the GTA are always going to have some sort of value. And in the sense that maybe some of the rural and the cities may have a little bit more volatility, people are always still going to want to live nearby the city, but want that extra space. So it looks like when I look at these numbers, there's a healthy balance that most people are looking for. There's always going to be that value in a single family home in a suburban area where they can get a combination of great space and decent proximity to the city. Now they're talking about the ideal home for Canadian buyers. You're going to see that over here. So for 2022, they talk about a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house as the ideal home for Canadian buyers. And just 1 year later, looking over here at 2023, the 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom is the most ideal home for Canadian buyers. Daniel Foch made a really funny comment on the podcast saying that maybe the fact that everything went down slightly from year to year is because they realized they cannot afford that type of house and they just weren't realistic. So everything kind of dropped down. But the funny thing about the 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house is that tends to be usually the smallest size of most first-time buyer, like starter bungalows, starter houses, detached homes in these suburban areas. So it complements it. We're looking at suburban areas. That's usually the starter type size of a house we're looking for in that area. I also would agree, talking to a lot of my first-time buyer clients who maybe didn't want to go through condo living and they want to jump to a house or maybe even a townhouse. Usually that sweet spot for a lot of them is 3 bedrooms. Maybe they're just a couple right now, maybe with 1 kid. They want that extra bedroom for growth, maybe for their guests or for their parents to stay over. That's usually the sweet spot, 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, in the idea that you want a guest bathroom and you want a personal ensuite bathroom. So that tends to line up with what my clients are typically asking for as first-time buyers. Now moving into the must-have features for these home buyers, they're saying the main floor bathroom, 54% of them consider a must-have. Natural light, 53% consider that must-have. Patio deck or an outdoor space, so some sort of backyard or outdoor space, 50% of people consider that a must-have. A garage is considered 48%. People think that's a must-have. Updated HVAC, 46%, and updated kitchen is 45%. I would say all pretty basic stuff, all very run-of-the-mill, typical things that a first-time buyer is looking for. Again, really much lining up with that suburban home. Some of this type of stuff you could relate, again, to a condo or a townhouse, but a lot of this, like especially when we're talking about the outdoor space, the patio or a deck, it doesn't say balcony. It says a patio or a deck or outdoor space where they can have an extra little space for the dog to run around, for their kids to play, for them to have a barbecue in the backyard. That's something that people are valuing more than ever versus, let's say, a balcony in a downtown condo or even a midtown condo. Now moving on to what flooring do buyers prefer. Shout out Vito. 29% of people prefer hardwood. 23% of people prefer carpet. 28% people prefer tile. 17% of people prefer laminate. And 13% of people prefer luxury vinyl plank. As a very quick note, I find that's kind of funny with the flooring because a lot of buyers, a lot of the time, cannot differentiate something between a very nice laminate and a hardwood. I usually can. You can tell the difference. But there's some really nice laminate out there, and most buyers tend to be okay with unsettling for a really nice laminate. So, of course, hardwood's like a big, sexy, cool term. I find most houses really don't have hardwood that often nowadays, and that's the one thing that people settle for pretty quickly. Now, some features that sellers should not be prioritizing based off the feedback that they got. There's 4 things that they talked about, which I think are a bit controversial in my opinion. They said 27% of people wanted a mudroom. 32% of people wanted a hot tub. 34% of people wanted a pool. And 21% of people wanted a basement suite. And that's much smaller percentage-wise versus the must-have features. The mudroom, I could understand. Some people just don't care for it. They don't really need it. Hot tub, I will debate that hot tub's a fantastic thing to have in a house, but I guess it's not too important. Same thing with a pool. Only 34% of people really wanted that pool. And that makes sense. Maintenance items that are important. But the one I find is the most controversial is 21% of people wanted a basement suite. And that goes against a lot of the conversations I have with clientele, because a lot of people are actually looking for that basement suite because they want to have it to have either an in-law suite or create some income and help them to afford a nicer house. So I would say sellers should prioritize a basement suite. I would totally go against this. I think a lot of people probably want that basement suite to, let's say when you eventually do sell that home, it's more attractive because maybe you get an investor to look at it, or you get someone who has a larger family to look at a multi-generational family. I think a basement suite's one of the more important things. So maybe a bit of controversial there. So here's a really interesting quote. 66% of Canadians say home price is a deal breaker. I'm surprised it's not 100%, because in the end, if you can't afford the house, it's going to be a deal breaker. At least it should be a deal breaker. Let's read it here. When purchasing a home, it's no surprise that the price point plays a significant role in decision making. A staggering 66% of Canadians consider home price a deal breaker. Likely, this is because for many Canadians, home ownership is still out of reach. A recent Mortgage Professional Canada survey found that a record high 33% of Canadians believe they will never be able to afford a home. And shouting out Nick Hill from the Canadian Real Estate Investor Podcast, he's mentioned here, the number one deal breaker in anything is usually price. We have too many people that need housing and not enough houses. Hill says that this guarantees available housing will become more expensive. And this is where I feel like there's a big disconnect versus some first-time buyers and what their wants are and what their needs are. And if we go back to the top of the article, they keep preaching, we want that single-family home. We want that single-family home. We're not willing to settle on a condo or a townhouse. But when they look at what their affordability is, they can't afford that single family home, or at least they can't do so right away. And that's why I feel like there's a huge disconnect, because a lot of homeowners may be able to afford, let's say, a condo or a townhouse, something that's a little bit smaller, but gets them into the market and gets them into the entry-level price point. But when it comes down to it, they are not willing to settle because they have their budget does not line up with what they are looking for. And for some situations, I totally get it. Some people have a particular goal in mind and they're in their own right to stick to that goal. But when we hear that this housing is what everyone's in demand for, but they're not willing to look at something that's more within their budget, like a condo or a townhouse or an entry-level property, that's where a huge disconnect I find between the price and what the wants are for many people. Maybe not the needs, but the wants. Looking into other deal breakers, price being the biggest deal breaker for most people, other deal breakers include the home's condition at 61%, location at 53%, the neighborhood, which is similar to location but at 46%, size is the 40%, and age of home is 30%. It's interesting to look at these other deal breakers because all of them really correlate with price. The home's condition, it costs a lot of money to renovate and to get it to a better condition to what you're looking for. That's going to cost more money. Location-wise, the closer you are, let's say, to Toronto, the more expensive it's going to be. Same thing with neighborhoods. We're not looking to live in the annex and expected to spend less than $1 million. So there's different things. Some locations and neighborhoods are going to be more expensive and be correlated with that price, making it a deal breaker. Same thing with size. When more square footage, the more price we're going to pay. And the same thing with age. Well, maybe not fully with the age of the home. Sometimes older homes can still be very expensive. But I imagine a lot of newer, modern custom-built homes are going to be a bit more expensive than your older homes that are not upkept. With that being said, an older house can be renovated extremely well and probably be worth more than, let's say, a newer house that's very basic. So that's an interesting point to look at these deal breakers. Here's an interesting line. 68% of Canadians say a home's overall condition is extremely important when purchasing a home. This is because 47% of buyers are only willing to do minor cosmetic upgrades to a home, such as painting and updating fixtures. Only 32% are eager to do more substantial renovations, upgrades such as a roof or foundational repair. With that being said, a lot of people don't know the bulk of the work that has to do with these big major upgrades. So most people want turnkey properties. I will say that most of the experience I have with clientele, most people say that they're willing to paint, they're willing to do the minor stuff. But the moment it means tearing down a wall, a lot of them are a little bit uneasy about that, and they would rather spend more money to get that turnkey type home. When we look at the top 3 amenities that are most important to buyers, 64% of people said parks and outdoor recreation. So being by green space, being by walking trails, all that fun stuff. very shortly behind is a 63% is shopping and dining. And number 3 would be medical facilities. Those being the most important things, followed closely by public transport, good schools, pet-friendly facilities, all that fun stuff. So if you're looking for 3 things you want to be location-wise for a good resale value, you're looking at outdoor areas for parks and recreation, shopping and dining, and being nearby a good hospital. The last point in the article that I'm going to talk about is home buyers are okay with less as the ideal house size is shrinking. And that makes sense. I spoke about the idea that density is becoming more and more important, where condos are coming into play, where townhouses, where these multi-residential buildings are becoming more and more common with the need of pushing for more affordable housing. The article also pushes to mention that the average home price in Canada sits at just over $700,000, while the average salary of Canadians is just under $60,000. So there's a huge disconnect between the average home price and the average salary. So they have to do more with less. And that's where I really push condos being a huge thing. And I talk about condos consistently on this channel. Maybe some people don't like the idea of condos, but that's why I kind of see that being a more of a way as maybe people settling to starting their condo and then move up into that single family home, being the push thing that they keep getting pushed to because they want to be homeowners in Canada. Because you do know that a lot of people in Canada still want to be homeowners. I don't remember the exact stat, but I know there's still a significant interest in many people on becoming homeowners and not renting for the rest of their life. Went through a lot of information here. With that being said, I'm going to link the article in the YouTube video over here for you to read the whole thing yourself. Check out Zolo. Check out the Canadian Real Estate Investor podcast for all that info and their insights. But I'll link it there for you to read the whole thing because there's a lot of insights that we maybe skipped over. With that being said, this is something that I like to look at just to get a perspective from first-time home buyers. If you're a first-time home buyer and you disagree with everything I'm saying or you agree with everything I'm saying, give me a comment, give me a like, give me a subscribe, hear more from myself. I'd love to hear some feedback on your end on how that differs and how you as a first-time buyer are navigating the market and becoming a future homeowner that way. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video there. You can reach out to me below. If my phone number, my email, my link to book a call with me is there as well. We'll talk soon. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care. Bye.